best horror franchise of all time.
Bon appetit!
Those pumpkin-shaped candy corn, those stale motherfuckers that...
Oh, yeah.
The Shadow Crew Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Shadow Crew Podcast. Happy pre-Halloween. Anybody diving into some Halloween candy? I had those orange, those like pumpkin-shaped candy corn, those stale motherfuckers that...
Oh, yeah. Hey, the thing about candy corn is that they made all the candy corn in one run and just have not sold through it yet. So you're actually eating candy corn from like
Willy Wonka, 1966. Almost broke my damn tooth eating one of those today. So in spirit of Halloween, we're gonna talk about a bunch of fun stuff. I know I was enjoying Mr. Storm and Dr. Brantley's recap of Mummy stuff, and it got me into the Halloween mood. If you all haven't seen it, it is available on the Shadow Knows Network channel. So scroll down to some videos. I think it was cool retrospect. It got me thinking about some other horror franchises, and I think it'd be cool to talk about what's the best horror franchise of all time. I think it's easier to nominate the worst horror franchise of all time, to be honest with you.
Which I think would be Mustang Ranch in Nevada. That's a... Oh, wait, this is... we're talking about movies.
HORROR.
My bad.
Yeah, I'm on Netflix, Hulu. They're all released their like horror, their new series. There's some bad stuff out there, but there is some good stuff as well in the past. So I think we should like jump into the best horror franchise of all time. What are the nominations? It's difficult for me because you think Nightmare on Elm Street, but then you think about the collection of those movies. It can't be.
I was going over some of them, and I'm like, okay, well, 1 was good, but two was bad on that, and then I was like, three was not bad. That was when they came back and they brought some of the characters back, and then 4 was kind of okay, and then they just went off the rails.
That's where I was like, was 2 and 3 any good? Like Friday the 13th is another one. They made how many damn things? There's so many bad ones. That the character's cool. But I think after 2...
4 was good. That's where Corey Feldman was in it, and he shaved his head at the end and to freak Jason out. and then, again, they went to shit. But, it was like, 1 and maybe 2, and then 4, because 3 was pretty bad in 3D.
What about Jason Goes to New York? Which one was that?
That was 8. We talked about that.
That was really bad.
Manhattan.
Yes. And then Jason X. So I can't say it. There's just so many. And then Halloween too.
Hold on. What is the rule though? It has to be like just more than one movie, or
like at least 3.
That's a
franchise.
Because that's a good point, Chet. Because I was thinking like Evil Dead is an easy one for me, but that's only 2. So it's like that doesn't qualify.
3. Army of Darkness is still the same.
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Then I'm throwing that in the ring.
Well, that was my pick, but then I was like, well, I don't know, because that's not like. I guess. Well, I don't know. Evil Dead's just such a good freaking movie.
Yeah. Well, all 3 of them are good in their own ways. 2, I think, is the absolute best, but Mr. Storm, I think, would disagree.
Yeah, you know what? No, I thought 2 was okay. I personally liked Army of Darkness. That was one of the better for me. Now, it wasn't in the vein of being like Evil Dead 1 and 2, where it was a little bit more horror related, but I still enjoyed that movie. I think I've seen that movie about 100 times. So Army of Darkness, the 3rd film, is the best one for me out of that franchise.
When you saw, did you ever see the TV show he did?
I did see that, and I thought that was pretty good too.
I think that probably throws it into franchise model.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I love that. I would say one of my I don't know. I was gonna say Saw is up there for me, but like I'm really just kind of talking off of the first movie.
But it's still a franchise. It's done 10 films or 11 films, I think.
Yeah.
Take it if you put add.
Well, Saw X just came out like 2 weeks ago.
But I think the Spiral film with Chris Rock is connected into it, so I think that makes 11 films in total. That's the Fast and Furious franchise soon to be.
Well, there's
it's
lot of
better
them
than Ric Flair,
where they made a ton of sequels, but really only the first one was good. Like they've made Lost Boys sequels, they made a bunch of Tremors sequels, and to varying degrees. And Hellraiser is another one. Like there's a ton of those.
I think one of the ones, if we haven't mentioned already, I think the Conjuring series, even with all the spinoffs, I think it's probably one of the better franchises that's been developed in the last decade. And each one of the movies, I think, while there's a couple of them aren't too well. I think the first Annabelle and maybe the third Annabelle are pretty good. The Nun was pretty good. I haven't seen the Nun 2 yet. The Curse of I can't remember the name.
La Llorona.
Yeah, I thought that was okay until the second half of the movie. It fell off, but as a total franchise, I give that, because I thought all three Conjuring movies were good. While I thought the third film wasn't as good as the first two, but it still had the spooks, man. Because I remember when Dr. Brittley and I had an office in Lawndale, and we were watching The Conjuring when it first came out at night, and we were doing some work. And I remember, I was asking him, "Hey man, did you lock that back door?" Because it's that scene where they go downstairs and out of the darkness, the lady claps, and it just freaked the hell out of me, man. That was probably one of the most scariest films I have ever seen, because it was right on some crazy crap, man.
I'm struggling to find, outside of the Evil Dead franchise, a franchise that didn't have one or two really big pieces of crap in between.
Final Destination.
Final Destination.
That's a jinx.
Yeah.
We're all gonna die.
Are you sure there wasn't a piece of crap in between?
No, I think the whole thing was a piece of crap, so it's it just evens itself out.
But you weren't there for the deep character arcs of all these kids. You wanted to see all the interesting ways they were gonna die, and that they pretty much did good in every one.
You know what that's like. You remember the Too Risky for TV Faces of Death?
Yes, I do.
Videos?
Yes.
That ultimately are all fake, by the way. But yeah, that's
so you say.
So the person says I made it.
What I would say,
Scream was good.
Yes.
Again, piece of craps in between those.
Scream
1 and 2 were good.
Scream.
3, I didn't think was so good, and I didn't bother with any of the others. 4, 5, and 6 now.
Yeah.
And see, I think I've seen all of them, and there are degrees of them. It's harder to get the effect, but the Paranormal Activity series as a whole, I think they're the kind of the ones where it holds up film to film, while there are different filmmakers in between, but it's still pretty much the same type of filmmaking. So you kind of get the same, standard of films across. The stories change, but I think that they've done a good job of not wasting millions and millions of dollars on something, and just basically letting the characters and the elements run the story. So, but it's, you can't deny how much money it's made. It's made a crap load of money, man.
I think if we're going TV series, what about American Horror Story? I don't know if you all have watched that, but that's been an ongoing thing. And I haven't watched all of them, but the ones that I have been pretty, there hasn't been any that have been bad. But then again, I'm not really in tune with all of this. But it seems like every year there's a new one. So in terms of new horror franchises, that seems to be the bigger recent one thus far. Well, it's not living in the past.
They have one now, a new one now, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's in the running, but there's been some seasons where it's just you're kind of just doing this
garbage.
For shock value, and it's really kind of stupid at this point. I know a lot of people really liked the season that Lady Gaga was on, and she was a vampire, and I was like, I think that's like one of the shittier versions of the show, personally. But I don't know.
Well, does anybody think that franchises? I think it counts as a franchise. I don't know if people associated with it, but the whole entire Silence of the Lamb franchise, because it's moved from film and the Hannibal TV show, and I don't know how well it's perceived, but it's pretty successful. And most of the films weren't bad. I think maybe Red Dragon with Ed Norton was okay.
It wasn't the best, but yeah, it was all right. I think it's there. I like the TV show, which makes sense why they canceled it. Like I thought it was good. Mm-hmm. See, I think the problem is that a lot of these movies, when they came out, it just didn't really exist to that level. Mm-hmm. And so to try to come out with a second one with the same impact that like a first one had, right? Like if you look at like Nightmare on Elm Street,
yeah,
like that like screws with your head, and that's like the first one. So like when you watch the second one, the problem is you're going into it knowing what it's about, but it's still good. It's just not the same like gut reaction because you've already seen the first one, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think that's the problem with like a really good horror franchise. Like a really good horror franchise would be something where you're on the edge of your seat the entire time, and at the end of the movie you still have no clue what's killing everybody. So now if I make a second one, you're coming back because you want to see if you're going to find out what was killing everybody, but then you don't. And then when you decide you're done with the franchise, that's when you show it off. That's how I think it would be good, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Everyone would hate you for that.
Yeah. But they would come see my movie because they would hate me. I would want them to hate watch it.
We guarantee we will show the monster in this film. Kidding.
Just kidding. Well, it's like Stranger Things. I would consider Stranger Things to be in a franchise, but like if you watch the first season of Stranger Things, they didn't show it really until like the second season, and then you started getting this idea of like what it actually was.
Is Stranger Things, would that be considered horror, or is that more like sci-fi?
I'd say horror.
Sci-fi horror.
I think it's on it's a hybrid.
I think, there've been ups and downs, but overall there hasn't been a season where I was like, I would consider it a piece of crap, and it's picked up momentum too. And I think they do it right. It'll be a nice final conclusion. If we're talking that, maybe Twilight Zone too. Does that belong? Like, is that horror, or is that like that's on the cusp too?
On the cusp. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, most of those are pretty damn good. Classic. Mm-hmm. The movie was actually pretty good. So I think we're leaning more away from traditional horror, but those two stand out.
I think so. I thought the Purge series was pretty good. I even thought the TV series was okay for what it was. But as far as not being disappointed film after film after film, even with the same kind of premise, the first one's hard to get away because that was a concept we hadn't seen. But I've seen the rest of the films in the series, and each one has a surprising kind of like outcome. And the television show was completely different than what I expected, because I'm like, how are you going to do 24 hours in like a television show? But they pulled that off pretty well. So I think that franchise has worked out pretty well. That I thought as a concurrent series along with The Conjuring are probably two of the better ones that they've developed in the last decade.
And I will include here a clip from the first trailer. I did get to ADR the emergency broadcast system.
Tonight allows people a release for all the hatred and violence that they keep up inside them.
Why don't you guys kill someone tonight?
Because we don't feel the need to, Johnny.
Just remember all the good the Purge does.
We'll be fine just like always. No worries, okay?
This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of the annual purge. At the siren, all emergency services will be suspended for 12 hours. Your government thanks you for your participation.
Purge 1, and I didn't see any of the others.
What about Alien?
There, again, it's only like the first 2 movies I would consider good, and they weren't really scary after that either.
Well, the third film, I'm going to disagree. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible compared to when you see the rest of the series.
That's true.
I thought the acting in it was, top notch. Charles Dutton, you've got some, great actors in it. It just the storyline was a little bit outdated and a little far out for everyone else. But compared to it, I think there's 3. Again, the first 2 movies are fantastic. The third movie is decent, and then after there, you have the problem with that franchise. But I know they're supposed to be doing a new Aliens movie for Hulu, right? So we'll see what's going to come up from that.
I think I have to. I'll be remiss if I don't mention it. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. When they got into the 3D shit, I'm not all about that, but those movies were great. And then, I don't know. I think it's good and funny story. There's a guy in Georgia who's pretty big on social media on TikTok, and it's Michael Myers of Decatur or Decatur, Georgia, and he literally year round dresses up as Michael Myers and rides a bike in like throughout his like neighborhood, and then his wife does a lot of like the filming, but she legitimately gets like upset at him because like she'll get phone calls from people while she's at work, and she comes home and he has this giant Michael Myers, like 40-foot blown up Michael Myers thing in his front yard, and now he's got his kid doing it. So his kid walks around with him with this Michael Myers thing on, and they just start dancing, and so that's I don't know. I think
Oh, shit.
This is too much, Evan. Seriously. I'm trying to be calm and collected this Halloween, but you're taking it too far with your little jokes, okay? I'm tired of this. People walk this trail and they're not going to appreciate this. I'm serious. Where's the baby? You said you were going to watch Harrison for me tonight so I could do some errands. Harrison, no. You come here. Stop. Get the knife out of your eye. Come on, get in the truck. You're done.
It's hard to say what a good like best horror franchise is, because I think if we were doing like most impactful first movies, I think we'd have a way cleaner list.
Well, you can't once you start getting past really 2 films in, how many times did the filmmakers really think about, if it went to 3, 4, or 5 films? It's very rare that someone put that kind of thought in. First 2, you're probably getting the 2 best ideas, and then by the time you make it to 5 and 6, you're getting like fresher, new people that are not the originals. I thought with the Halloween series, I thought the first 2 Halloween films were pretty good, and everything else was kind of subpar. And then the same thing when they rebooted it. I thought the reboot for the third time, I thought that the first 2 films were good. I didn't like Halloween Ends as much, the trilogy, third film in that. But I think it's really hard to get a series past 2 movies. But if they're surviving 30, 40 years after they've been around, they've gone to multiple TV shows, they're in pop culture and everything, that makes a successful franchise to me, man.
But you weren't a fan of the Rob Zombie one either, were you?
I was not. No, I was not. Not of the Rob Zombie one. No, I thought that
I like Rob Zombie stuff. Not that I like the House of a Thousand Corpses
exactly
and Devil's Rejects.
Mm-hmm.
The Monsters.
They're pretty good, but that was good. But the Halloween vision was brutal.
Way off.
Did you see the Monsters?
It was horrible.
It was the worst thing, possibly the cheapest movie for the biggest budget I have ever seen.
I was
And the Secret Invasion Award goes to
yeah. I was into it for the first 5 minutes, and then I was like, this can't be a thing. And it was horrible. And I just had to look at Devil's Lettuce to help get me through it, and it was real bad.
Well, the shame is that now we know Rob Zombie won't be on the show, but
he probably will. He'll probably want to come on and talk about.
I think he has to admit there's some good ones and some bad ones, right?
Yeah.
When I think of horror franchise, like going back to what we said, we named a few that may not have that many bad things, but I also look at it as, if we're talking about horror, I think about that being synonymous with scary ass stuff, scary ass shit. That offsets any bad mistakes you've made in the franchise. And by far, and I'll probably get arguments, I'm not talking about a realism. I know, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's a bunch of horror fanatics out there. I'm not even deep into like some of these independent things where it feels real and like Terrifier, gore. I'm talking about just scary. I don't think anything tops the first two Aliens, in my opinion. Like, to me, that's in the theater, in the dark, watching that is some of the scariest shit. The original Exorcist is probably up there.
It is.
But
it is.
I would say, like, if we're talking about horror, it's synonymous with scary, and to me, those stand out. Freddy, little cheesy, right?
Bon appetit!
Friday the 13th, a little campy. But I think those Alien movies, holy shit.
Well, I think you're right in that too, because I remember a couple years back they made a game, Alien Isolation,
dude,
and
that's scary shit.
It's just all in that
VR.
Yeah, it was in VR. It was scary as hell. Like they at San Diego Comic-Con, they had like the giant egg you sit in to play the game, and you would just walk by and hear people screaming their freaking lungs out. And it was like, dude, yeah, I wouldn't play that shit in that egg either. And I enjoy like pretty intense games like that. But I tried to play Alien Isolation. I was like,
I had it. And so, a lot of time spent hiding in a locker, and you just see little alien here. And
yeah,
it's like, oh my God. And it also has like a heartbeat going too. So you're like, oh my God, why am I so tense?
Did you play it in the dark too?
Yes,
did you
of course. What else are you gonna do?
I did that. I had it on my PC, and I hooked up my Oculus to my PC just so I could like have like crazy graphics. And I was like, no, I'm good. I turned that shit off. I was like, this is too, because the sound design. What people don't understand about that game, and not to go off topic too much, but people don't understand about Alien Isolation is the sound engineering in that game makes it freaky as hell if you have headphones in. Because it's good. It's like good audio.
Yeah,
it's a creepy game.
I've watched people stream it, and I'm nervous as shit. And I'm not even playing the game.
Yeah.
I just like feel like the energy there. What about Resident Evil?
Yeah, Resident Evil.
Palms are sweaty.
Yeah, Resident Evil. Not film series wise, but I think if you're going to say
the game,
a horror franchise game wise, yes, it definitely is in there because I know first and two generations that play that game.
It kind of evolved though. It went from like horror to like it took a different path, even in the story in the movies.
Yeah, I think the best horror franchise game series of all time is Silent Hill.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I mean,
like that. It's like that's just an unreal series. It's creepy even if you watch someone play like on PS1. Like you're just running through like mist and fog.
Everything,
the whole game.
From the like little bits floating in front of camera.
There's one other game where you ran around and your weapon was your camera.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, you had to take pictures. I don't remember. I remember which one it was. Hold on.
Paparazzi.
Yes, paparazzi.
Can you get Kim Kardashian?
Yeah, I think one of the craziest horror films that I'm not looking forward to seeing that's coming out is the new Marvels movie. So that's gonna be a shit show in a barrel of monkey farts. What do you guys think? Are you looking forward to watching that bullshit, or do you?
I'm not looking forward to it. I read that she's upset about the backlash, and she's thinking about exiting, and she doesn't like being the character, and
she should
blah,
exit.
blah, blah.
She's not
it's
good
like,
in the character.
Nobody likes the character. It's like we don't like you.
She was never good in the character.
No.
It was never good. She had primal opportunity to come in and like give a why she was acting and take on Thanos, and instead it was just like they just tell her to go in her closet and film the scene by herself because it's like nothing was even there when you watched her interact with anybody, and she's just too bitter. Like get out. But I mean that's that's par for the course with Marvel right now, and Disney is like, we're so big we don't give a shit if no one cares. Here's a new movie. Suck it up.
Well, I think it's without getting into the whole major political reasons and everything, and I think a lot of the fanboy nation, a lot of people are like, oh, it's because it's a female lead and everything. No, it's just not done right. The problem with it is that even the first film, while Samuel Jackson is pleasant, why the actor, I can't remember his name, the one that plays Coulson, they're good, but there was really no reason for them to be in that film. And I thought that by bringing in this character, and I thought it would have served purpose, you had the Hulk already established. And this is going to the fanboy point of knowing too much about comics, but you had a prime opportunity. If you were going to do Captain Marvel, do the original version that was Rick Jones, and you could have linked him to the actual Incredible Hulk, and that would have been a whole thing to actually get more Hulk cameos. But they go and they take the latest version because I think that, again, Marvel has had this direction where they're going extremely, PC on a lot of things they're doing and not actually thinking about what's best for the characters, what's best for the arc they're looking for, what's best not to offend or upset anyone. And I think when you start walking on those eggshells, it's not going to work out. And I think this last phase hasn't worked out for them doing that.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I can say is it's just a lot of like pandering to shit that people like the very few, and like you said, we don't really get into any of this shit, but the very few people that are vocal, everyone's so worried about it, but everything is being pandered to those vocal people who don't know shit. And you're seeing it in the box office because the people who were into these films like are going and sitting in them and telling everyone they know like this film was garbage. Like there's no reason to see it, or this actor didn't, I didn't feel it from this actor, this actress, or whatever. And that's a story with her and the Marvel character, and it's like, no, it's that you have a shitty attitude off camera and you have a shitty acting. Like you're not good. Like there's nothing about you in any of the movies that you've started that make me believe that you're that character.
Thank you first to the Academy.
Sure.
She's playing the character that's in the Nissans, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Didn't they say they were going to do it on Disney Plus instead of theaters?
I heard there was a rumor, but I haven't seen it. They've already promoted it. Yeah,
it's coming out in like 3 or 4 weeks.
I think it's going to go straight to Hollywood Video, actually, in Blockbuster.
Q-Star Video.
Here, what I think is, if you think about the beginning of the Marvel universe, the first phase MCU, it was never about casting the biggest stars or the hottest stars in the moment. It was about casting it right. Started with Robert Downey Jr., right? All the naysayers. He had to fight to pitch the studio that he was the right fit. And then, aside from some one-offs, like, was he a big name? No, he was a known actor, but he wasn't like a big superstar like a Tom Cruise. Yeah. You think about Black Panther, you think about Spider-Man, you think about Thor. Chris Hemsworth wasn't a major blockbuster star.
He wasn't
when he was Thor. They were just like, he's the fit. And so I think over time, gradually, most of the characters outside of Scarlett Johansson, who was pretty famous, and she worked out all right? But everyone else was like, hey, it was more about they fit versus we want a name. With Captain Marvel, it was about who's the hottest star right now, female lead, that we could put in and try to drive box office revenue. And here we are today, where people are like, she ain't the fit. Well, that's not Captain Marvel. And guess what? Her popularity has trailed off significantly. Yes, there's no Oscar buzz. So you're in this hole now where people don't give a shit about the character. Plus, it's a character that's attached to the first MCU. Like, all those characters are kind of gone. So it's like the tail end, we're kind of in this transition. And we've got it's honestly, they should have shelved it. In all honesty, they should have just been like, we don't need this. I'll watch it just to see, but I think we're heading for some significant doomsday here with this movie. And to your point, Dr. Brantley, if it bombs harder than The Flash, that would be a bad look for Disney.
You also you have competition right now for bombing movies. Like, you have the Marvels, and then you also have Aquaman 2.
No, Aquaman 2 is going to bomb too.
No, I know, but I'm saying
that's getting such bad PR. By the way, I feel like there's a massive campaign to destroy that movie. I don't know if it's from within.
Well, that campaign was started by James Gunn when he said those characters were no longer relevant. That universe, he actually did the killing himself, actually, for a change.
James Gunn single-handedly, and I'll probably get some backlash for this shit, but James Gunn single-handedly came in and was like, I'm going to fuck up everything you tried to build, and then I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. You came in and you got rid of probably the best casting of Superman that has ever happened since Christopher Reeves.
I will give you that.
You could put Henry Cavill in a fucking Superman movie in 2 years, and it'll be the highest grossing DC movie that they'll make. Because outside of that, before they did that, after they did that, Wonder Woman, the first one, not the fucking crappy second one, Wonder Woman was great. But James Gunn has come in and been like, you know what? We're gonna get rid of all these. So now you have what's happening in the theater is you're racing for the biggest bomb between the Marvels and Aquaman 2, and then on TV they're doing the same shit. I know last week, kind of to tie this back to last week, we talked about Loki, right? Or one of the other weeks we talked about Loki. I watched Loki. I binged watched Loki. And I thought it was freaking amazing until I saw season 2. And then I was like, you should have just stopped. You should have stopped, because season 2, it's I watched both episodes and have no idea what the hell I watched. And so I think we're just getting into the phase of what Chris said, which is just put it on the shelf. Stop. Just cut it. Count your losses. Stop. No one's going to watch this.
Both of these are sequels to billion-dollar movies. Aquaman made $1 billion. Marvel, Captain Marvel made $1 billion. And both of them are on track to be some of the biggest flops as a sequel. Like, I can't think of too many that was like such a big first one, and then the sequel was...
Give Ridley Scott some time. He'll be able to do that for you. But no, I think you're right. I think, well, one, Captain Marvel was off of the wave of the actual MCU itself. It didn't really perform in the same manner. Like, people knew who the character was. It was the franchise. It was the whole Marvel MCU thing, and people were like, "What's the next one?" They've got the biggest star that they had in the MCU in Samuel Jackson, where it's a transition. We don't see Samuel Jackson that much in the films, and he was in this one a little bit more. So with Aquaman, I think it was just, again, it was what Henry Cavill had done in the films. I think you had Superman and Batman that premiered. I believe Wonder Woman premiered before Aquaman. So you just had the wave of people expecting, well, this is going to be a great film. And I think now what's happening is that people aren't expecting the MCU films to be great films. They've been disappointed time and time again. I think it all started with the tail end of the last phase, because this entire phase has just not worked. From Ant-Man 3 to, I think Doctor Strange and the Multiverse was the last one I sat down and thought this one was at least decent compared to Spider-Man No Way Home. But the other ones have been extremely disappointing, and I don't see that trend changing. And I don't see the Avengers movies actually moving up, because if you're going to go in the same thinking and the same mindset that you've had with these, they've got to totally go in and make a change. And I don't think in the same way the James Gunn issue made a change, because I don't think that's going to work either. I just think you got to change the structure of how the films, you got to start caring about the characters more and start getting back the characters that people recognize, because no one recognizes these characters anymore.
Well, what they need to really do is understand why everyone is so pumped about Deadpool.
Which is delayed another year, by the way, or something due to the actors' strike. So by the time that movie comes around,
Hugh Jackman will be 70.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still, I mean, you still in modern day superhero movies, Ryan Reynolds was always meant to be live action Deadpool. And so like they're fun movies to watch. If you don't know anything about Deadpool, you go in and watch that and you just try to figure it out. But I think that they have, how many more, they announced a whole bunch, right? So now it's a matter of like how are you going to get out of this deep hole? You killed off essentially Captain America. You made Thor look stupid. Like you can't bring Thor back in any movie and have him be like the god of thunder that anyone like respected. Like you've gotten rid of all these like great things that were built up by your own company. For what are you gonna do with them now?
Well, I think a reboot. I think that the smart thing is just to reboot the character. Look, they should have, after Endgame, if you knew you were going to replace Robert Downey Jr., have someone else to be Iron Man. If you're going to replace,
you could have brought in Iron Lad. You could have literally written Iron Lad into the movie.
You cannot in any way, shape, or form, I think, replace your heavy-hitting characters. That's why DC constantly, you'll see, till the end of time, a Batman film, you'll see a Superman film, you'll see those characters constantly come back. But for them, they were like, I think the problem goes from the top. And I think that when you have great success, you get to the level where people can't tell you anything. And I think that Kevin Feige now is at the point where he's had the ultimate level of success. And now this last phase, well, if they didn't like they love the first characters. These other under characters are going to love that too. And the fans are telling them that, no, we would like you to go back. We still want to see Captain America. We want to still see Iron Man. And I just think that that's ego, is not saying this has not worked out. The next phase, we're just going to, and you don't have to do like this whole thing where they just show up and everything. I think it started when they said they were going to bring, they weren't going to put the Black Panther into Black Panther 2. I thought the most culturally relevant character that we've seen that went across the board with everyone, you just decided was not relevant because the actor who did a great performance did not come back. Would you have seen DC kill off Batman or Superman? No. But what they decided was that the MCU is bigger than the characters itself and the people behind it. And that's not the case. It's the characters that are big, and the people, exactly like Chris, you were saying, they need to go back to just not known actors. Get the right actor for the role and build it around him, make his career behind it.
Do you think, I know we talked about this a couple casts ago, Quentin Tarantino had mentioned something about like it's not about like the actor's performance, but it was more centrally focused on like the actual character, like Captain America or Iron Man.
True.
I think I disagree with why Marvel is a bit stuck. Because if you think about the DC universe, while it hasn't been nearly as great as Marvel, you think about Batman as what? Probably Batman, Superman, the iconic characters that. Sure, you could go back, Christopher Reeves, Michael Keaton, Christian Bale, you could name them all. Some have been better than others. But I think you could still do Batman or Superman. I think because Iron Man wasn't as big of a known character to the world as Superman or Batman, and the same thing applies with Captain America. There wasn't like a bunch of TV shows and a bunch of movies prior that those two are known for those roles, right? Like Tony Stark is Iron Man. We're like, I think it's hard to replace. I think they found themselves in a bit of a holy shit. How do we recast this? Like it's so weird, like such a powerful. Like to your point, Alex, I think if you're going to reboot it, you have to just like clean slate it. But to try to plug in someone else into the current story. I just think he's just so phenomenal. He's been associated with this character, and they may just like, I don't know what they may be like. How do we do it? They just may be stuck. Like, how the fuck do we replace Robert Downey Jr.?
The easiest thing to do is they've already set up these alternate universes. You can have like your one big star character that you want to keep, Tom Holland probably, go into another universe, and then everyone else can be recast. And if people don't like that, you can go to another universe.
Well, the thing is, they had the ultimate, I guess, conduit to do it with the snap. They bring in these characters. Well, the Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, passed away. Now there's another actor as the Black Panther. Who would have known? Maybe he knows he's not in the same, universe. They could have replaced the characters. But they chose not to.
But I get like the concept behind you could do it. I think they're just struggling with it because how iconic. I think he's created that character. I think they're fine. They're a bit stuck in the past, and they don't know a very clear path forward.
Well, that's I think the problem thing of not recasting Chadwick Boseman. I don't think any of those characters are above recasting. Especially like if there's a dispute about money. It's like, well, you know what? Okay, you're out. Someone else, like Rhodey.
They didn't have a problem getting Terrence Howard found his way to Empire. it rolls down to is like Hollywood works in the one major thing, and this is Dr. Brittley and I, Chris, you've been around it long enough and everything. They replace actors, they replace writers, they replace directors. They've done it in the middle of Richard Donner, one of the best ones. They replaced him in the middle of a movie. They can replace him. It's just they chose not to. And it becomes a little bit of humorous and ego when they don't do it. It's like, you're bigger. We're going to tell people. We're going to dictate to people what they want. And that's not the case. The audience dictates to you what they want. That's the reason why the last 3 Star Wars films didn't do well. It did cash-wise, but people despise them because people are like, these aren't the characters we want to see. This is not the scenario that we want to do. But then people sat with unknown characters in Rogue One, and people thought this is fantastic. You dictate what they want to see. They're unwilling to change their habits because they've made billions of dollars since the Avenger movie. They've made that money. It's hard to tell somebody that's extremely successful what to do to change. They're the hardest people to ever change because it's like, I've got to this point, I've done this, but doing this, I might as well go on. But right now, the universe needs to be changed. I heard like the problems they had with Blade. They brought in someone that wrote like 2 action sequences for the entire movie. I'm like, that's just insane. Like, clearly that was the wrong choice of writer. So it's like, with the TV shows we talked about last week, they've got to do some internal changing. They've got to figure out, like, we can't fix it in post. You can't fix a terrible movie in post. That's not going to work. On the script if a film is good or not, and they're not reading what the audience wants, and they're not reading the scripts before they start shooting.
All I know is for this, if they want Blade to really work, I hire the John Wick director to film it.
I would
do. I want to see some badass Blade versus vampire fight sequences. I want to see, like, do it right. Like, I think Wesley Snipes did a pretty badass job in that film.
Right.
Take it to another level. You take it to the John Wick bar. Be the first Marvel movie to be like, holy shit, this is like Kill Bill level. They won't, but I'm just saying you have an opportunity to do it with Blade here.
Mm-hmm. They do.
But I think with everything that's like going on with like Disney and Marvel, right? You look at like all the stuff that they have on slate to do. Like, what are your thoughts on the Gargoyles like live action thing?
Yeah, you know what? I've been reading in this.
Does anybody remember that? Like,
it's still big.
No, but what's the audience? Who is it? Us that's watching this shit? It's like, is it our age group?
It's
I don't know. Like,
it's like, literally us watching.
It's us, right? Like, it's our like.
That was,
you better get it right, because it can't be some bullshit like with the little kids.
all the kids you're marketing to we're all the ones with the money now.
Yeah.
So you better get this right.
I remember that was the sole reason why I was a little excited for Disney Plus, because some of the properties that they hadn't shown in a while, we had the chance to see. I've been, like I said, going through a couple of chats and everything through the Instagram and all the rest of stuff, and I'm just hearing people like, "Oh no, like, don't do this movie." Don't do this. And I think it's because the animation is just iconic. It was a good show for what it was, and I think that it's in people's minds.
Just leave it alone.
I think it's one of those times where it's like, if they would have said it was animated and they were going to do it, and maybe as a Disney Plus show or something, I could have got behind that. I don't think that this lends itself well to live action, especially with the amounts of special effects and everything it's going to be. I think they're going to hurt
happen.
It.
Yeah, don't Ashoka this series. You know what I'm saying?
And while James Wan, I'm not going to besmirch his name, because I think he's done outside of the second Aquaman movie that's probably coming up. But he was also the producer that did the DC version of Swamp Thing, and that was probably right on the nose, one of the better DC properties for television that they just went for one season on. But so I think he can pull it off. I just don't think the fans want to see that.
Depending on how they do the stories, and it can be with James Wan, I'm thinking it would be pretty dark, So I would be interested. I'll at least check out the first one.
Damn, I didn't know NECA does their toys.
They do.
Oh yeah,
and
they're fantastic.
They're actually really cool. Amazing. I had no idea. Yeah,
NECA with those are like, while a lot of people like the Super 7 Ultimate lines, I think NECA nailed those. They had a display at the New York New York Toy Fair, and they had the clock tower, and they had all the gargoyles on it, and I was like, wow, that is absolute. The detail that they put in those looked like it came right off the screen, right into form. NECA's doing a fantastic job on that. Give them credit. But since we're already rolling into certain things, and we already ripped on my man Ridley Scott, I heard he gave his glowing endorsement to the Hulu movie Aliens Rodimus, and he's saying it was freaking great. Now take it from the guy that did the last 2 Alien movies. What's your thoughts on that, guys?
You know that scene in Prometheus in the beginning where he drinks the fluid and then explodes into the water? I feel like I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna put this on Hulu. I'm gonna pour myself a bourbon, and at 15 minutes in, I think it'll be the same result for me. That's how I think this is all gonna go. I hope I'm pleasantly surprised, but
What
my gut instinct tells me no.
I can tell I was surprised on one thing. I thought that Prey movie, that was the I guess the prequel to the Predator films. I was on the fence on that, and I saw it. I was like, you know what? This was a lot better than I imagined it. So maybe this might turn out okay. The Ridley Scott endorsements was worrying me right now.
Those last two Alien movies, the Covenant was absolutely terrible. Prometheus, I thought at least looked good, but every character and everything in it was pretty much trash.
Prometheus was only good if you saw it in the theaters in 3D.
I saw it in theaters. I still wasn't impressed.
I liked it in 3D because like when they get into the ship part and it like lights up and all that stuff, like that was a very good use of 3D. But I can't tell you what the movie was about.
It was about, if you run about 10 feet that way, this ship won't land on you. But no, let's run the long way away from it. That was one of the dumbest character things I've ever seen in a movie.
It's like Lord of the Rings. Why didn't they just melt the ring in the first movie when they knew it was a problem?
Oh, that's too easy. There's no film if they melt the ring down.
It's like welcome to a new Shadow Crew Network series where we just take a movie and just say how you should really do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we'll name it into how it should have been done. The Shadow series.
Hey, Doc, don't steal that plutonium from Libyan terrorists. Oh, all right. The movie's over.
Back to the Future's done.
Oh, man. Back to the Future 3. Bad memories. Okay. It's a great movie.
Yeah,
come on, man. 3. Come on, man. Speaking of replacements, Rick and Morty season 7.
Should have just ended the whole thing.
Well, they got a contract for 5 more seasons or something. You
literally should have just ended it and been like, you know what? New series.
Well,
because it's not. I can't. I just couldn't. It was bad.
Like we said about the MCU, no one's not replaceable, and the series shown. Look, I remember I talked to you, Chad, early in the week, and we were talking about the whole thing with Rick and Morty. And he's like, you got to go check it out. And I remember I watched it, and I was wondering if it was going to be as bad as the solar opposite phenomenon, because the solar opposite, they went completely different with the voice of one of the main characters. And I thought, this makes absolutely no sense for this. You should have gotten somebody to mimic. It's the same way that I'm listening, like when Mel Blanc, the man of 1,000 voices, passed away, and he had to recast like 90% of Warner Brothers. And the characters never really sound the same, or Jim Henson not doing Kermit the Frog. The voice never quite sounds the same, but is it tolerable? As I watched Rick and Morty, I thought it was tolerable towards the end. It was harder in the beginning because there was certain gists, but by the end, it sounded all right. I just thought the story they wrote for this first episode was a little underwhelming, and I think that added to the discomfort of new characters.
See, I thought Rick wasn't bad, and that one was the closest of the voices. And they, that's why I think he was in 90% of the show, because Morty's voice was off. And I noticed that right away. And I was like,
there's speculation because they haven't announced who does the voices, or at least they didn't at one point, that Morty was casted as a female. And I'm like, well, no one really gives a shit if it's male or female. We want it to sound like Morty. Like Rick, like Bobby Hill in King of the Hill was a female voice, so who gives a fuck? Like, my problem is that I was halfway excited about Rick and Morty season 7, and then I watched it and I was like, wubba wubba, nope, should have just stopped.
You weren't enthralled with the adventures of Mr. Poopy Butthole?
Yeah, it was an underwhelming episode to start season compared to the Szechuan sauce and things like that. It was a really underwhelming first episode.
In my opinion, this Rick and Morty season is like if someone told me, "Oh, you got to watch. They did a season 6 of Breaking Bad," and I had to sit and watch like the season 6 of Breaking Bad that just shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because it's like, yeah, maybe the last season of Rick and Morty, like, however it ended, but like all the controversy, all the bullshit that happened, everything that's going on, like everything, and then to recast it and just miss it. And Alex, you and I talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of videos where you can go on and you could see people where you're like, holy shit, that's like almost inexact. Like, why are you not using that person? And then I go on and listen to it, and I'm like, I can find 4 people on YouTube right now that are way better than the voices I'm hearing right now.
And that's the thing. I don't know if there was because they went some union route or something, but I did think we were talking about that video, and there was like hundreds of people that were doing Rick and Morty, and they were mimicking the voices. And I thought that, why don't you just get some unknown, bring them up, and, have them do the voice. It didn't make sense, the route that they took. And, it's a shame because, again, there was certain aspects of it I thought was Rick wasn't as bad. I only heard Morty for like 30 seconds. And then I think they knew they didn't get that down. Yeah. I think it was really relevant. But it was the story, too, was just like,
story was off.
It's not a first season opener that they've normally done. And I think this what happens when, we go back to the Fonzie and jump in the shark. Like when they said, well, we want 4 seasons, when does it get to be the point where the studio has asked for something, yet the creators are like, look, we've hit the best we can. Like, let's end it here. And I just think that when it's, we're going to do 3 more seasons or 4 more seasons. And I think now you're not doing the thing where you're on the edge of your seat knowing, well, will we be back? You're going to be back. And you don't have to write in the same vein as it being that tough. And I just thought that it was a story that mostly hurt this because I'm like, they're doing like an intervention buddy kind of scenario. Spoiler alert should come down right here at this moment. But I just thought that wasn't a good enough first episode for a season. And I've seen better ones by them.
I think it might have been just to take the pressure off of who the next Rick and Morty are. Just so we center the first story at least, but we'll see how it goes around someone else so that the main characters aren't the focus, because then people will be listening for, he doesn't really sound like that.
Well, the show's called Rick and Morty, not the other people, not Birdman and Gearbox Head or whatever the guy's name is.
Yeah.
It's like
even without the character voice swaps, it's very hard in a comedy animation to continue to run 7, 8 plus and beyond and keep it relevant, keep it funny.
True.
The only one that comes to mind, I know The Simpsons still in the air. I don't find that, like, if you go back, it's changed pretty dramatically. But the only one that I feel, and I don't know in this day and age, they must be the most untouchable dudes in the history of television.
They are.
Is Trey Parker and Matt Stone. I don't know how they no one says anything
because they're billionaires.
You saw the trailer for their new new thing, right?
No, but you go back. Every single topic that is controversial that anybody else would ever touch would be canceled.
Oblivious. Yeah,
I don't understand how they're able to survive. But that one is still like, and Paramount's paying them freaking millions of dollars.
Oh, they have to.
It's just crazy to me. And I know we're talking about Rick and Morty, but I still, I'm just in awe that that's still, I was like a kid when that came on, and it's even more controversial, but no one seems to care, and they don't give a shit. And it's just like they found this pocket where they can just do whatever they want. And I think part of it is like, sure, there's some topics that are sensitive for folks. I'm not saying all the things, but I'm just saying, like, to cover it is just kind of funny to say, like, we're just going to do whatever we want to do.
But the reason why I think South Park has that, like, anonymity is, like, they kind of brush the lines of, like, stand-up comics. And so in, like, stand-up comedy, like, everything's on the table and nothing's off. And there's that line. And I think that's what South Park has done so well for like, I've watched episodes on South Park where I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that or like this is whatever. And I was like, but I also in the same breath am laughing my ass off. And it's because it's like, I think each episode of South Park is done as like a long version of a stand-up comedy skit. It's legitimately like you go watch a comic, they could talk about shit that like you just wouldn't talk about. And you think it's funny or you don't or whatever. And I think that that's why South Park does it. And I think that that's why they'll always have that, because they can do an episode in 6 days about the most relevant topics and they make it funny and people want to laugh.
Untouchable.
Yeah, it's just untouchable. Yeah, it's not. I watched the preview for the shit that's coming out on the 27th, and I was like, nobody else could do this. Like, you replace Cartman, what? Like, all right, I'll watch it.
Yeah. Well, hey, I had fun chatting about some interesting stuff this week. Anybody got any other things you want to talk about before we wrap this evening?
Well, I'll say this. As we always go into this part of the show, we like to thank our sponsor, Toys vs. Games. Yes, we always kind of slide that way in. Even though it says pay promotion at the top whenever you start the video. But still, we thank the fine gentleman over there at Toys vs. Games for sponsoring us every week. It's a mom and pop store. And the reason why it's one of the Shadow crew and Shadow itself favorites is because you can go in there and you get the service that you normally would not get out of any other store other than a mom and pops. They have readily games available. There's certain things, if they don't have something, they'll try to get it. So if you're in Wilmington, California, and if you're not in Wilmington, California, get on a plane. It's cheaper to fly here than to drive into Wilmington, because I could literally go to the Inland Empire, fly to Wilmington. It'd be cheaper for me to drive. But Toys vs. Games, we'd like to thank them so much for being the Shadow Crew podcast sponsor. And if you have a time, check them out there on Instagram. And they're also linked to our Instagram, which is the Shadow Knows channel on Instagram. So, or Shadow Knows Network. I'm sorry, Shadow Knows Network on Instagram.
Which, by the way, is the updated name.
It is.
Yeah, we did update the name.
Updated name, as we were rolling right into it, was generally when we sat down, we talked to Shadow, and Shadow is all things and everything. This was something he was naturally moving in. The channel started out as his namesake, and then there's As, where we have a lot of great, exciting shows where we're going to talk to Chris about him and Chet having a pretty something popping up, and we've been seeing that the direction of the channel had changed a little bit more, where it's more variety, more different shows and mixtures. And we just thought this was the natural move to brand the actual channel as an actual network or channel. So you can go right ahead. Chris, sorry for cutting you off.
No, all good. I mean, there's tons of content already, and we appreciate everyone listening. Like, subscribe, as always. It helps the channel grow. I think as you've seen some new, fresh content and some stuff that we do on a regular basis, including this cast. But the retrospect, as I talked about earlier in the cast with Dr. Brantley and Mr. Storm, is up. I love watching it. The Mummy films. Look for episode 2. But if for fans of classic horror and the Mummy genre, it was cool for me to listen in. And then Mr. Shadow himself has a new video up, and he'll throw some stuff on there. His adventures into Burlington Coat Factory, or Burlington, or whatever the hell it's called.
Still Coat Factory.
For those of you of interest, I guess I won't spoil anything. But how long would you wait for a deal on a toy? And how long would Shadow wait? And then, as Mr. Storm alluded to, Chet and I are excited to bring some additional content to the network. And we are going to launch periodically the something we're excited about that talks about retro. Chet, you want to talk a little bit about what we're looking to do?
Yeah, so we were thinking about the things that we love and what has brought us joy in the time, and kind of what is driving the driving force for toys and Hasbro Labs and like everything else in this big uptick, and so we have decided to start the Retro Review Club. And it'll be your one-stop destination for a nostalgic journey through the iconic toys of pop culture of the 80s and 90s. You can join us as we unbox, explore, and reminisce about the classics that defined our childhoods. From vintage action figures to beloved cartoons, we'll take you on a trip down memory lane, sharing in-depth reviews, fun anecdotes, and plenty of nostalgia. So keep your ears and eyes peeled out for that, along with some exciting new platforms coming that maybe you can start to interact with us live. That's great, because we all charge a lot of money to interact with live.
And I'll be honest with you, with the recent Chet unboxing and the Retro Review Club unboxing, and to fuel not only Mr. Storm and Dr. Brantley and Shadow's toy and figure collection, Chet's extravagant collection of toys. Be on the lookout for the $3 million robot unbox that Chet is looking into.
It is going to be a massive box.
It's going to be a massive box, but we're excited. And I mean, again, thanks for tuning in. Again, subscribe to the channel and look out for more updates, more content, and a new streaming platform for us to chat with all of you live. So anything else before we adjourn for this evening?
No, as always, man, just always have a great time, and I think the audience knows that we have a great time. I'd like to thank everybody for viewing and tuning in, man. It really kind of just keeps us motivated.
Unless of course, anyone out there has the NECA Ninja Turtles van, because I need that. So let me know if you have it.
And Club Obi-Wan.
And
Indiana Jones.
And
Still
Club
looking
Obi-Wan.
for him.
Undamaged from Target.
Undamaged, and preferably not have ever touched Targets in stores. So, yeah.
All right, all. Well, see y'all next week.
Adios.
Bye.